Listen, I'm going to tell you something today that might shake you up a little bit. Silence is power. Yeah, I know we live in a world that's loud. Everybody's talking. Everybody's posting. Everybody's got something to say. But let me ask you something. When was the last time you got real quiet and just listened? Not to the noise, not to the opinions, not to the distractions, but to yourself. Silence is full of answers, but most people are too busy to notice. We live in a world where noise is constant, phones buzzing, people talking, social media pulling our attention every second of the day. Everyone is always saying something, trying to prove something, trying to be seen or heard. But in all that noise, something important gets lost. The ability to listen, not just to others, but to yourself. Most of the time, the answers you're searching for aren't out there in the world, they're inside you. But you'll never hear them if you don't stop long enough to listen. That little voice. The one that tells you when something's right, when something's wrong, when you need to make a move or when you need to be patient. That voice doesn't yell, it whispers. And if you've got too much noise around you, you'll miss it every time. Successful people understand this. They take moments of silence seriously. They step away from distractions, from unnecessary conversations, from all the outside opinions, because they know the real work happens in the quiet. When you're always talking, always engaging, always reacting, you don't leave room for clarity. You don't leave space to process what's happening, to reflect, to make the right decisions. The reason some people feel stuck isn't because they don't have the ability, it's because they don't take the time to listen. They keep looking for direction in other people, in social media, and what the world says they should do. But the real direction, it's already inside. You just have to get quiet enough to hear it. Think about the moments in your life when you just knew something deep down, when you didn't have to ask anybody, you didn't have to double check, you just knew. That's the power of silence. That's the wisdom that comes from listening to yourself instead of the world. And the more you practice it, the clearer your path becomes. Clarity doesn't come from movement, it comes from stillness. But most people don't realize that because they've been taught that if they're not constantly doing something, they're falling behind. So they run from one thing to the next, chasing answers, chasing opportunities, chasing success, never stopping, never breathing, never taking a moment to sit in silence and ask themselves what they're actually doing and why. The problem with always being in motion is that you don't give yourself time to think. You're reacting instead of reflecting. You're making decisions based on pressure instead of wisdom. And when you do that, you end up moving in circles, repeating the same mistakes, feeling overwhelmed and exhausted because you're chasing a vision that isn't even clear to you. Stillness is uncomfortable for a lot of people. It forces them to face themselves, to sit with their thoughts, to acknowledge the things they've been avoiding. That's why they keep themselves busy, because being busy makes them feel productive, even if they're not actually making progress. But the truth is, you can't get clarity if you don't stop long enough to see where you really are. Some of the most important decisions in life don't come from long debates or endless research. They come from a moment of silence where everything just clicks. But that can't happen if you don't create the space for it. When you're always surrounded by noise, opinions, distractions, responsibilities, you don't give yourself the chance to hear your own thoughts. When people feel lost, the first thing they do is look for advice from others. But before you ask anyone else, have you asked yourself? Have you given yourself the time to step back, to be still, to really hear what your own mind and heart are telling you? Because clarity isn't something you go out and find. It's something that comes when you stop running long enough to let it catch up to you. Wise people understand that listening is more powerful than speaking. But in today's world, everybody wants to be heard. People are quick to talk, quick to give opinions, quick to prove their point, but very few take the time to truly listen. The loudest person in the room is often the one who knows the least because they're too busy talking to learn anything new. Listening isn't just about hearing words. It's about understanding what's not being said. It's about paying attention to people's actions, their energy, the way they carry themselves. When you develop the ability to listen deeply, you start seeing things others miss. You start picking up on opportunities, understanding situations better, and making smarter decisions because you're not rushing to react. You're taking in information first. The strongest leaders, the most successful people, and those who truly make an impact all have one thing in common. They know when to stay quiet. They know that wisdom comes from observing, not from trying to prove they're the smartest person in the room. They understand that every time they speak, they're repeating what they already know, but every time they listen, they have a chance to learn something new. People who talk too much often do it out of insecurity. They feel like they have to prove themselves, like they need to be noticed, like they have to fill every silence with words. But real confidence doesn't need to be loud. It doesn't need to announce itself. When you truly know who you are, you don't feel the need to constantly explain yourself to others. Listening also helps you connect with people on a deeper level. When you stop talking and start paying attention, you begin to understand what people really mean, not just what they say. You become more aware, more intentional, and more in control of every conversation. That kind of awareness separates those who lead from those who follow. Confidence isn't built in front of an audience. It's built in the quiet moments when no one is watching. A lot of people think confidence comes from validation, likes, compliments, applause. But real confidence comes from knowing yourself so well that you don't need anyone else to confirm it for you. That kind of confidence is developed in silence, in the moments where you're alone with your thoughts, facing your fears, pushing yourself to grow. Most people avoid silence because it forces them to sit with their insecurities. They fill their lives with distractions so they don't have to confront their doubts and weaknesses. But true growth happens when you get comfortable being alone, when you stop running from yourself and start dealing with whatever's holding you back. That's where confidence is born, not in the noise of the world, but in the stillness where you realize what you're truly capable of. The people who seem the most secure, the ones who walk into a room and own it without saying a word, they've done the inner work. They've spent time in the quiet, figuring out who they are, what they stand for, and what they're worth. They don't need to shout about it because their presence speaks for itself. That's the kind of confidence that lasts, the kind that doesn't crumble just because someone else doubts them or doesn't approve. When you take time for silence, you start to hear yourself more clearly. You recognize your strengths, you acknowledge your weaknesses, and you develop the kind of self-awareness that makes you unshakable. That's why the most successful people carve out time to be alone, to reflect, to process, to plan. They know that real confidence isn't about how many people believe in you. It's about how much you believe in yourself. Most people are looking for confidence in all the wrong places. They chase attention, they seek approval, they rely on external validation to feel worthy. But confidence that depends on others will always be fragile. The only way to build unshakable confidence is to spend time in silence, get to know yourself, and trust what you find. Distractions are everywhere, and most people don't even realize how much they're holding them back. Every notification, every unnecessary conversation, every bit of gossip, every moment spent worrying about what others think, it all adds up. Before you know it, your mind is cluttered, your focus is scattered, and you're spending more time reacting to life than actually living with purpose. The reason so many people feel stuck isn't because they don't have talent or potential. It's because they're constantly being pulled in 100 different directions. They wake up and the first thing they do is check their phone, filling their mind with everyone else's thoughts before they've even had a moment to think for themselves. They spend their days listening to opinions that don't matter, chasing validation that doesn't last, and engaging in distractions that don't bring them any closer to their goals. When you allow too much noise into your life, you start losing touch with yourself. You stop hearing your own thoughts, your own instincts, your own dreams. You start living according to what the world expects instead of what you were actually meant to do. That's why you have to be intentional about shutting out the noise, about protecting your focus, about creating space for silence. Because in that silence, you reconnect with your purpose. Successful people don't let distractions control them. They understand that every time they give their attention to something meaningless, they're taking it away from something that truly matters. They choose what they allow into their minds. They make time for quiet moments to think, to plan, to reset. They don't let the world dictate their direction because they know that their power comes from within. The truth is, most distractions aren't accidents. They're designed to keep you from reaching your full potential. The world will always try to pull your attention away, to fill your mind with noise, to keep you too busy to focus on what really matters. That's why the ability to tune out distractions isn't just important, it's necessary if you want to reach your highest level. In stillness, you hear the guidance you need. Life moves fast, and it's easy to get caught up in the rush, making decisions based on pressure instead of wisdom. But when you slow down, when you allow yourself to sit in silence, you create space to hear something deeper than your own thoughts. You create space to hear direction. Too many people are searching for answers in all the wrong places. They look to other people, to trends, to outside opinions, hoping someone else can tell them what to do. But the truth is, the best guidance doesn't come from the world. It comes from within. And you can't hear it if you never take the time to get quiet. Some of the most successful people in the world swear by moments of stillness. They know that when they remove the distractions, when they silence the noise, they gain access to the kind of clarity that changes everything. Because in that stillness, they start to see what's really important. They start to feel what truly matters. And they begin to recognize the path they need to take. There's a reason why some of the best ideas, the biggest breakthroughs, and the most life-changing decisions happen in moments of quiet. It's because in those moments, the mind stops racing, the fear settles, and the truth rises to the surface. But most people never experience that because they're too busy filling every empty space with noise, music, social media, conversations, constant activity. They don't realize that by doing that, they're drowning out the very guidance they've been searching